Recording in progress, only half an hour late. You are seeing this, my friends, either live or not live. It depends on where you are in the time-space continuum. We've had no end of technological problems this year during our live Zoom broadcasts of the 9 days of Jerry. But in any case, you could be in England, you could be in France, you could be in South Africa, you could like to dance. Doesn't matter what time zone you are in right now, because we're all here together. It's Radio Free Nachlaot's 13th annual 9 days of Jerry, and reprising his guest DJ role for many, many years now, whose microphone is still turned off, by the way, according to my Zoom. Now it's on. Noah Lehrman is here in the house. Gewalt. Welcome.
Thank you. Now I know one was answering me before. I had my mute on. I thought it was something I said. This is one of my steadiest gigs. I'm so glad to be back in it again.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
No, for 13 years, this has been our steady gig. And I think, except for the little fluke we have with our technology, which always seems to plague us no matter what. And that really is true Grateful Dead Masora, because they played Woodstock and they hated the show. Why? Because someone rewired their equipment right before the show, and every time they got near to the microphones, they would get a shock. So, we fly by the skin of our teeth over here, and
that's why they call it the electric Kool-Aid acid test, I guess.
Well, that was before, yes, but
okay.
It's all electric, and we're live, and that's what we like to do. We like to just, wherever we're at, we're part of the continuum. People say, well, do you podcast your shows? Do you repeat your shows? And for years, I've been saying, no, this isn't, we are organic. This is an organism. It's a living thing. It grows, it morphs, it changes. But like with all things, it has its cycles and it has its consistency. And one of those things is the 9 days of Jerry. And another aspect of that is Noah being on the radio with us. So that's
So here we are. Right. It all comes back to Noah, doesn't it? Always. That's what they say.
That's what they always say. Parshat Noah or Noah and or Noah.
Right.
Right.
Well, all the Rainbow family, the original Rainbow family.
Right. There you go. Okay. So meanwhile, Noah, what do you have for us this year? What's going on?
Well, it's been a great summer for me so far. As you said, this is the fourth summer I've been doing this with you guys. I know in the past, I've kind of taken you on my personal journey through the Grateful Dead from my youth, both as a fan and then as a performer. So, I've been through that. I guess this year I wanted to take you a little bit on maybe an insight into a little kind of bookends of Jerry's journey, and maybe some rare insight into some of his words. He's famous as we'll hear for, always, I guess, preferring music and the ineffable to words. But I have maybe some treats of some rarities that we could see there of him talking, exposing some of his playful side as well as his kind of reflective side as well. And of course, I'll sprinkle in some of my tales from the Golden Road that I've encountered, including, fittingly enough, kind of some of my recent interactions with David Gans, who's someone who's been,
cool.
documenting this whole experience for a long time, and I've been lucky enough to come across lately. So hopefully hopefully we still got 2 hours. I don't know what time we got left, but hopefully I have some treats for you, some stuff that maybe you never heard before, although all your fans are so well versed. I guess we'll see.
Well,
is there
our
anything
fans have a Talmudic knowledge. I mean, that's what I have to say after all of these years of running the radio, is that we have the Talmudim Chachamim of the Grateful Dead listening to us all over the world. During the time we were off, I had so many emails like, what's going on? I'm like, don't you know? Haven't you looked at the calendar? it's one of those years, and they were like, oh yeah, like they named some other year. I'm like, yeah, exactly like that, because we can't start until after, but it was on Shabbos and etc. So everyone really knows what our shtickle is. In the end, it's just like Steve wanted it all along. We never advertise. We're just this much under the radar that we're cool to fly this way for as long as the wind is beneath our proverbial wings.
Right.
So no, I've got this clip. This it says Roving Rambler, first known studio recording of Jerry. We're going to play that first.
Yeah, well, let me just say a little
Set
bit
that up.
by way of introduction. You know, I always, you know, I figure, you know, that speaking of the Talmud, it says, you know, it says for that you should speak first of first thing. So
Amen.
at the beginning there, I just want to say, you know, to me, when I was growing up, my parents lived out in the Rockaways, and they had dear friends who were Ruth and Willie Wernick, whose son was a man by the name of Pete Wernick, who's from Hot Rise, is a well-known banjo player, and was a friend and played with Jerry. So when I was growing up, even before I got exposed to the Grateful Dead, I got exposed to some great old banjo music, thanks to Pete and thanks to his connection with Jerry. That side of Jerry, even when I still didn't make the connection to the Grateful Dead, which I assumed was some kind of death metal group because they had that skull in their logo, and that's all I knew when I was a wee youngster.
Sure.
But he is, and oddly enough, or actually completely fittingly enough, as you guys know, banjo was his first love, his first instrument. You know, as a kid, he was given lessons on banjo and guitar. Was in the same ads that Yorma was when he was teaching, and he was playing in very fluid lineups of banjo music when it was first getting out, and in '62, along with a bass player by the name of Rob Hunter, and a guitar player by the name of Dave Nelson. He got invited for the first time there's any documentary evidence of. So he got invited into a studio to put some of that banjo music down in '62, and the Heart Valley Drifters. And after introductions of the band, this is the very first recording that we have of a studio version of the man himself, Jerry Garcia. So I thought that'd be a great way to kick off.
Okay.
And it's probably something not many people heard. This was re-released by Jerry's
This
estate.
is only 1 minute and 54 seconds, so we will.
It should be 3.5 minutes if you're doing the Roving Rambler one.
Well, it says 134 on it.
Okay, well, we'll see what it goes.
Estás listo para hacer tu primer envío. Paso 1. Opciones.
I am a roving gambler, I've gambled all around. Whenever I meet with a deck of cards, I lay my money down. Lay my money down, lay my money down. Hadn't been in Frisco many more weeks than 3. I met up with pretty little girls, fell in love with me. Fell in love with me, fell in love with me. Took me to her parlor, she cooled me with her fan. Whispered low in her mother's ear, I love the gambling man. Love that gambling man, love that gambling man. Daughter, oh dear daughter, how can you treat me so? To leave your dear old mother and with the gambler go. With the gambler go, with the Mother, oh dear mother, you know I love you well, but the love I have for the gambling man, the human tongue can tell. Human tongue can tell, human tongue can tell. Mother, oh dear mother, I'll tell you if I can. You ever see me coming back, I'll be with the gambling man. Be with the gambling man, be with the gambling man. See that train a-coming, she's coming around the curve, whistling and a-blowing, straining every nerve. Straining every nerve, straining every nerve. I am a roving gambler, I've gambled all around. Whenever I meet with a deck of cards, I lay my money down. Lay my money down, lay my money down.
Yeah, bravo, bravo. He's a good banjo picker.
He is. So that's where it all began.
Lorelai, you're muted. There you go.
I love
uh,
that graphic that we were looking at during that music though. That was so amazing. I have to find out who did that art.
No, it's good stuff. Let me just ask you a quick question. Are we going to do the full 2 hours and then we start a half hour late, or do we
Yeah.
have?
Yeah, we should be able to do that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I still had room for all my clips there. Well, that's where where it all started. Of course, we know how many projects sprung from that, and of course, we all know him for the Dead, primarily. But over the course of our show today, I'm actually gonna play a bunch of stuff, but not the Dead. I'm gonna keep this to some of the other projects. I know I played a lot of Dead for you before, but to me, there's so much to explore, including right there. And one other thing that I want to talk about and see and can think about how things were different at different periods is one of the tunes that I used to love to listen to a lot of his 70s versions, especially when I was driving up, especially through Virginia, through the Smokies and on the Blue Ridge Mountains, is Sitting on Top of the World, especially up there on top of those Blue Ridge Mountains. I felt that a lot, and I always really loved the vibes that I get from a lot of his 70s versions. But Sitting on Top of the World was one of the other tunes that was from that original session in '62. And as you can imagine from what we just heard is probably very different than we're used to hearing it. But of course, this is all his origins was steeped in this music. And we all know his covers and his classic covers in a lot of his side projects were very steeped in finding those roots in that soul, even beyond what was incorporated into the Dead repertoire, is coming there. And that's, that was him, playing over his rabbis and his rabbis. And hopefully we're still doing that today with his music now. But while we're just at this birth of Jerry as a recording artist, let's listen to Sitting on Top of the World. And I know he's sitting on top of the world up there looking down at us while we do this.
Pretty song called Sitting on Top of the World. One summer's day, my baby left me. She went away. Now she's gone, but I don't worry. No, I'm sitting on top of the world. Mississippi River, so big and wide, blonde-headed woman on the other side. Now she's gone, but I don't worry. You know I'm sitting on top of the world. All summer, spring and fall, blonde-headed woman is the cause of it all. Now she's gone, but I don't worry. You know I'm sitting on top of the world. No need to run in, holding out your hand. You're my woman, you know I'll be your man. But if you go, then I won't worry. Baby, I'm sitting on top of the world. Was in the spring, one summer's day, my baby left me, she went away. Now she's gone, but I don't worry. You know I'm sitting on top of the world.
Beautiful.
Sitting on top of
I'm so glad you played that. There's another version I think that Jerry does with the Wildwood Boys.
Sorry.
Music never stopped.
And the right. And the version he does with the Wildwood Boys is like a heavy banjo focus, but fast. It's like boom, you know. And this is such a much sweeter version, and it's much more.
It's so sweet and tender, and you. No, absolutely. Sorry, and you know, later the Dead were famous for laying it down dirty and playing it back clean, and when I first heard about the release of these recordings, that, you know, it was 62, he was a student. I was like, you know, I was expecting, a very, very rough recording, but it's so crisp and clean. You really feel like you're there in the room with this young Jerry, like in that cover art.
It is
like,
a really clean recording.
It's amazing for 62, and you really figure there, and it's that sweet. It's that before Jerry got fast in many ways. Let's say, before the acid test, before the Dead, before the Warlocks, when he was a pretty straight music student who was exploring the roots and the tradition, which I think really in a large way, despite it all and despite the captain trips and everything, is something which really he never got away from. But when he did get away from it, that was the fulfillment of it. I think there's speaking about the early days, I got to mention Pigpen. The kids these days love Pigpen. I love the fact that you see a lot of 18-year-old Pigpen fans these days.
The pig lives forever, man.
The pig lives forever. There's a great meme going around of like Pigpen like playing like this, and kind of like look at like this, and like the caption is like that moment when you realize like a bunch of hippies like took over your blues band, and I love that meme because I know exactly what he was going through there. But I'm like, Jerry could say like, well, you know, a bunch of hippies took over my bluegrass band, but it wasn't a takeover for him. You know, he was all about exploring and reinventing himself and seeing where the music can come as a fulfillment of those roots. And hopefully we're going to hear him talk a little bit about that in a moment.
I want to say though that moment, like the hippies, it wasn't a hippie thing per se. It was Jerry Bluegrass into Bear, Owsley, the acid tests that transformed them into a experimental psychedelic band that was in the hippie scene. That was like, this was all like an incremental thing that happened. I looked up Owsley's chart because there's so many things that I think about him when I think about the Wall of Sound. Of course, his acid, God bless us all who ever had anything even resembling that back in the day. I wanted to see like, what's this? And of course he was born on an eclipse. Like he has a remarkable insane chart, insane genius chart. I won't go into the details here, but I'm going to write about it at some point when I'm done writing about all the other millions of things I'm talking about. I just thought I would mention
it's on the list.
It's in the stars, and that he has a strong cosmic connection, so to speak, with Jerry. Like some of the things going on in his chart are very, let's say, simpatico with Jerry. In most especially Jerry's moon, like Jerry was very emotionally connected to where Bear was coming from. So just wanted to mention that because I think it's relevant to what we're about to hear.
No, absolutely. And now I'm going to let what we might play go on a little longer than planned. So because he kind of touches on some of those things that you just mentioned, but we'll get to that anyway. Just as a side note, you know, I'm just going on my first festival tour since the pandemic, and I play a lot of festivals, including some great festivals that are a lot of real old Grateful Dead family type festivals, and one up in New York called Froggy Days, which I'll be playing again on September 18th, I think. But I actually have a clip of some music from there later that we'll get to. But one time I was playing there, and as you probably know, just like, you know, Rebbe's have their Talmidim and they give their Masorah over to certain ones. Well, you know, Owsley also had his Talmidim, and he also had different Masorahs in different, just like, you know, the Rebbe's would send Rebbe's to different cities. There's different Masorahs in different places, and let's just say I met one of his direct Talmidim at one of those festivals once, and you certainly can get shown the light in the strangest of places if you're looking at right, especially if you look at a lot of people's faces after you meet one of his Talmidim. You see a lot of light everywhere, man. It's intense. And but Jerry talks about it in an interview too, when he gets into the significance of those experiences on him, about how, you know, they were significant because they opened him up to the idea that there's more out there than what he had expected. And he expected a lot, as he says, but there's more out there. And that translates to, I think, musically too, to his realization that even musically that there's more out there, not just consciousness, everywhere. And he was someone who always wanted to see what else was out there.
Which interview are you playing?
You see the one that says it's the first one. There's I Believe A, B, and C. Yes. So let's start with I Believe. But let me just preface this. You know, obviously a lot of people have seen a lot of great, you know, interviews with Jerry from different journalists and stuff over the years. This is from this in the 70s. There was a Catholic priest in San Francisco who had a little show called I Believe, where he would interview different figures from not only the Catholic world, but also, which of course Jerry is, even though we want to claim him as a Marrano so much, but also cultural figures. And he did a show, and he's a very 70s priest, as you are about to see.
Oh my God.
He did this. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's about a half hour. It's a whole interview is great. He's coming from an outside perspective, so like I've selected selections there, but we could just let it run potentially for 26 minutes. It'd be great for you guys. But this is from his show. This is a show called I Believe in a KPIX in San Francisco that Jerry came and sat down, and I think you get a little insight to a different kind of Jerry than you see in a lot of interviews, and talks about some different things. So
I'm really
let's
dying to
listen
see
to
it. It says on the clip, it says, I believe A, then it says stop at 5:22. Is that what you want me to play? That's
the play. Yes.
okay. I'm gonna do that. So hold on, folks. I'm gonna share on my screen. And I'm gonna share the sound. And hopefully it will all happen.
Yeah, I tried to get some special little rare things for you guys for this show, for Radio Free Nachlaot.
Jerry Garcia, the question I guess that the program asks at the beginning and the end, and most of the time during the middle, is who are you, and what turns you on? And so just for a change, instead of sneaking up on you, can I come right in straight and honest and say, who's Jerry Garcia, and what turns him on?
Well, I'm somebody who plays music, or tries to, and I think of myself as a person who's a music student. And what turns me on is being able to play, and being able to continue developing. I think that's it fairly simply, and then there's concentric circles of greater and lesser turn-ons. I mean,
Did you mean, I read at one point where you said I'm a slow learner. I'm not very talented, so I really have to work to learn.
Yeah.
And to grow. And you put a lot of emphasis on the growth, on the experimentation, on the change. You said I don't want to end in the cul-de-sac of success.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Well, my feelings about that are that that there is a convention in what you could broadly describe as entertainment that states essentially, once you have your act down, once you have it together, keep on doing it. That's what the people want. They're coming back to see Judy Garland for the umpty billionth time, and whatever. They're there to see you do your little dance, and I feel that that's a serious limit on anybody who feels that they're an artist, rather than an entertainer. Not to say that being an entertainer is no good, but I would rather think that I'm involved in something that's more open-ended than that. I'd rather not be able to see the end that clearly.
Right. And it's probably a thing of level. It may even be, I don't know this, but one of the reasons that the Grateful Dead now are actually playing in 4 different groups, that you do this, even encourage this. I mean, you're doing solo work,
yes,
albums with the group. Partly it's explained by the cost of travel and just putting the show together and putting it on.
Right. There are other less obvious reasons that I think that have a lot to do with our attitude toward what we're doing and our feelings about what it is and what it should be. And we felt that having reached the end of a certain level of that cul-de-sac that we were talking about, that in terms of, for us, or for a rock and roll group, for a performing musical group, the end of that really is the colossal, what we call the mega gig, the huge stadium, that we played in those, and that's where we ended up in terms of the largeness of our audience, the greatness of demand for what we were doing, and so forth and so on. We felt that was a dead end, and that there was no place to go from there, and that at that point the experience for us got to be one that was totally controlled in the sense of it's airplanes to motel to gig. Yeah. Backstage, heavy security, nobody near the stage, and what's worse is that it's also reflected in the way those very large venues deal with people. They deal with them in that sort of cattle prod methodology, lots of cops, lots of frisk lines, lots of tightness, and we felt that what we were doing and what we wanted to do was definitely not that, that was clearly not it. So then it became a question of, well, what do we want to do? And since that represented the end of the line developmentally, of what's there in America, what exists. That's it. That's the end of the line. You can't go anywhere bigger. There's no place bigger than those huge, the Astrodome or whatever, right? That's it. So from there, it's a question of what we would like to do is improve the quality of the experience, both on the level of what we're doing amongst ourselves and how we interact with the audience and what the audience experiences when we're there. In that sense, we're the Don Quixotes of rock and roll. We're doing something nobody else cares to do, which is trying to figure out how to make the experience which we value and which our audience values, something that's more in line with what it feels like, which is a positive sort of outpouring of good energy. And that's the reason we stopped, was to think about it and to not have to continually be meat,
Just crank it up. And
yeah, we didn't want to do
I
that.
thought the neatest thing that you said about the big amphitheater thing, I was reminded of this, it's so expensive to travel that you said we ought to do one of two things: either develop a space, a huge Astrodome or whatever, that would be our home base, that the Grateful Dead would play in, and then other groups could use the part of the year.
Right.
And I was going to suggest the Candlestick Park.
Nice. You got the baseball reference in there. I like that.
Yeah, I'm totally engrossed. He's really.
I am engrossed, I've
been playing
What do you
interviews.
think?
Yeah,
It's great. It's a great interview. The whole thing is he talks a lot, he gives a lot of his perspective, but it's really a great interview.
Yeah. Okay. So continue.
Let me just say, what one of the things I love is right from the beginning when he asked Jerry to define himself, and he says, I'm someone who plays music, but he doesn't say I'm a musician. He says I'm a student of music. And
Right.
what a great perspective, and that's also such a Torah perspective. It's like even the wise, even the Chacham is the Chacham is a Talmid Chacham. He's a student. He's still a wise student, and who is wise? He who learns from everyone. And that's really what was driving Jerry. And when he talks about not wanting to end up in the cul-de-sac of creativity, that's what really, I think, propelled him from his whole entire life, from the bluegrass to beyond and back again, as we're going to see later. He was always doing it ultimately, for Lishma, for the love of music and for wanting to learn and bring it through there. And then this interview is taking place in '76, so it's right after that whole period where the Dead took a step back, which you get a lot of different perspectives on what happened there, and the difficulties that led to that, and to, whether they be financial and personnel or all that. But I think Jerry here also gives you an insight into what really was also an artistic factor that was going on there. And we all, some of us more than others, have seen the difference between seeing Jerry in smaller venues and bigger venues, and how that changed the dynamic of the band going through there, and how not wanting to get caught up in that. That's also why in the '70s and on you saw really the flourishing of a lot of other of the Dead side projects, not just, I think, from the necessity of the tour interruption that happened in the early '70s for a whole bunch of reasons, but also for the artistic means that were kind of motivating it there.
Yeah, well said. Okay, continue. What's next?
Okay, the next thing is I believe it's a fresh link.
Yeah,
I do a little stop at 1908. Right?
That's been, I do a little bit of editing for you. From there, you guys, if you have the chance, go back, listen to the whole interview, start to finish. It's 26 minutes. It's good I recommend for everyone. The section we're about to do, we talked. Wait 1 second before you press play, please.
Oh.
The section we're skipping is when he talks more about the influence of the acid scene, and he's talking to someone who's really doesn't know what's going on, so it's a little basic there. So that's why I wanted to skip. But this section now, I think, is very appropriate. We're here on Radio Free Nachlaot, and obviously we feel a strong connection between our Judaism and the Grateful Dead. And maybe let me make I statements. I feel that, but I think a lot of us do there. But
that is the whole point of our radio station.
That's what I think. That's what I think too. But perhaps beautifully, and I guess we were talking about B'nai Noach earlier, going back to the family of Noah earlier, is B'nai Yisrael is also B'nai Noach, something that we should often remember. And I think part of what the Grateful Dead was is it gave us an arena to experience spirituality outside of just within Jewish context, certainly. And we know, and I think I've talked on the show about in the years past in this show about other groups which found religious expression at Dead shows. So. But it's very rare to hear Jerry. He's talked a lot about Joseph Campbell and the mythopoetic force that music and the ritual that developed around Dead shows brought into. He talked a lot also about that Campbellian importance of the quest, and he even said like part of what made the Grateful Dead so important was it provided an arena for adventure and danger for American youth, which was lacking and which we needed. So much of, to me, the Dead and tour reminds me so much of our ancestors, the Avos and the Emos. As well as reminding us of the Beis Hamikdash and the pilgrimages there. It even reminds me before, when we were nomads wandering in the desert, and there, the danger was all around us, and that hospitality we found from the kindness of strangers helping strangers, that was life or death. And now in America we get very kind of insulated from that with our smooth riding vehicles and our TV sets and our phones, but tour always provided an arena kind of to get back in touch with that. So Jerry very much was aware of tapping into that, but very rarely did you hear him talk about his religious experience at all, let alone with a religious figure. So as you'll say, this is a Catholic priest talking to Jerry, and you're going to get a little insight into his upbringing, which we'll touch on, and then you'll see where he goes from that into a very personal, insightful space, which just gives you an insight into Jerry as a person, which we don't always get. So I'll let you play from there.
We're just sitting here in the old studio at KPIX, exchanging altar boy stories from the good old days, and finding out that even Jerry Garcia, the leader of the Dead, has a few altar boys. How does a nice Roman Catholic boy like you, Jerry? I should be more serious. We ended the segment talking about turning people on, and from a spiritual vantage point, or within a spiritual consciousness raising context.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in with the fact that you were born and raised a Catholic, or maybe it doesn't. I think that has something to do with the beauty in your music and your art, the drama of your religious heritage.
It does have something to do with it, yeah. It probably has something to do with the thing of intensely wanting not to blow it, I don't want to be guilty, I don't.
Do you still feel that?
Oh, a certain amount, but no, not really. So I was sort of a laissez-faire Catholic. My parents were loose Catholics rather than devout Catholics, and so it was the kind of thing where they would send me to church.
Oh, that doesn't last.
No, it didn't. It didn't take really, and I wasn't exposed to the real heavy stuff, Catholic church, Catholic school and so forth. My brother got that, but I missed it.
Jerry, your parents, your dad left when you were very young. Your mom raised you and worked, and I heard her death in, 69, 70, had a real impact on you. She was very important for you.
Well, yeah. It was just strange, I mean, it's like, once they're gone, that's it, it's that flash, which I was aware of, really, but I was never really very close to my mother, so I felt that, well, that there's something that I wasn't able to complete, there's something that I didn't really do, I never was able to say to her that I thought you did okay, I was never able to finish that idea, but I don't feel that really our relationship, I don't feel as though it's gone forever. I feel as though more like that was underlying throughout, you know what I mean? That she always respected what I did and liked the fact that I was a musician and liked what I was doing and so forth, and she never judged me, even through things like involvement with drugs and stuff like that. She was always pretty good, and so I don't feel really too badly about it, but it's a shock, like those things, like things like that always are. And but on another level, of course, it's interesting how once your parents are gone,
like the foundation.
They're gone, that's
what
it.
What do you plug into?
Yeah, it's strange. On some levels, it's liberating. On other levels, it's very sad.
Yeah. Jerry, one thing, I have to make this comment. It may sound like a departure from where we are, but I think people would expect Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, who does not appear on television, they would expect, on meeting you this close, a much more sort of, I don't know, far out, flamboyant, heavy dude type swinger. I don't know. I think we have stereotypes of musicians and stereotypes of certainly the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane. There's a whole mystique about the Dead and about Jerry Garcia, and you're very real, very believable, very normal, dare I say. Am I blowing your whole image?
No, I don't think so.
Are you conscious of that, a kind of disparity between who you really are and what people expect of you?
Well, sure, because it works both ways too. I mean, on some levels, the media relation to the reality it's always wrong. I believe. I believe it never is very accurate because of just everything. Language itself is one heavy bias. So it's. But I've been described both ways, more radically than I am, more conservatively than I am. So there's a discrepancy on either level, you know what I mean? I don't really feel that, I don't relate to that. For one thing, I sort of taught myself that early, not to believe that that's who I am, that's not me.
Yeah.
And so I don't relate to it, and luckily the kind of fame that I'm involved in, whatever, such as it is low enough of a profile so that I'm not constantly being reminded of it.
People don't run up for autographs
right.
and so forth.
No, it's much cooler than that.
And yet people talk about, and maybe there's a difference between you when you're on stage performing, communicating musically, and you sitting here, as you said, using words.
Right.
Because people talk about the saint-like quality.
Oh.
Well, I don't mean it in a negative way, but there is an aura about you, whether you're aware of it or whether people put it there. And it's like the thing you were saying before. I thought very meaningfully. I said to you how my churches are empty. I need this crazy tube to reach young people.
Right.
You don't. You can go to Winterland and fill the place up with tens of thousands of young people, and you said, yeah, and I feel responsible.
Yeah.
I am concerned about that. I think it's that kind of a leadership, not an egomania, but a concern. Hey, here I am because of my talent, because of timing, because of any number of...
Yeah, right.
Here I am,
right.
And what am I... I know that you put words down and say, well, words are often lies because you can never communicate the whole feeling, the whole meaning, and music does it better. You've said that many times because it's freer, it's more open, and it allows for people to come in at different levels with different backgrounds.
Right.
So, but you are communicating something.
Well, I try to make an effort to, certainly,
What is? Can you describe that or talk about that?
Oh, well, it's difficult since the things that concern me tend to be not verbal in nature. They tend to be experiential. The fact is that most of my life has to do with certain kinds of experience that have been repeated, like many times. The high energy experience of playing for a large body of people and for the purpose of reaching some level, and so that energy and that thing is something that I know about, but I can't say what it is. So what I talk about, if I can talk about things, I try to make it so that what the content of what I'm saying is, reflects something that I know on that level. I can't say it, so I have to not say it. I have to talk around it or something.
Your music does that too, doesn't it?
Right.
And I sort of throw out little snatches, little phrase, thought things. There isn't a whole neat package of it.
No,
It's just
there isn't.
Bother you.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
You mean I have to think? I have to...
Yeah, I personally feel that people like that. I mean, I know I do, and it's on some levels it's all very simple, and on other levels it's difficult to talk about.
Yeah. You're very conscious.
Right. You're talking about how it's so simple on some level, but very difficult to talk about. To me, that seems like every Jewish mystic who's ever who's ever tried to describe an encounter. And it's great to hear
Well-
Jerry talking that way there too.
Steve,
Yeah,
your camera's off. I don't know if you know that or not.
Oh,
It's
hold
okay.
on.
I mean, you know,
Here we go.
here
Hello.
we are. Hello.
It's nice to hear Jerry talk.
It really
It's
is.
funny. Over the past couple of days, I've played a whole bunch of interviews, a little bit more than I normally would, because we hear him talk through his music, as was just pointed out. But it's nice to hear his words. But and I realized that he was in touch with something, that was beyond what we would otherwise call normal. And when in a different interview that I was playing, that he was talking about how in Palo Alto, it was very cool, hip community. Nobody judged anybody. Everybody was smoking pot. Everybody was groovy, but they were looking for something deeper. They were looking for something more, to like things weren't filled out enough. There was something. They knew there was something beyond, but they couldn't grasp it. And I was thinking that, of course, they didn't have Torah, which is just my own Torah prejudicial side. But of course, we have Torah. We have that which gives everything that depth and that and extended meaning. But what he said was they were primed for acid. And when acid came and it was legal, it gave them that extra dimension. It took them from space and time. It gave them that perspective that there's more beyond what you normally see, so there's nothing wrong with acid Torah and put together, because the fact is that look, I remember once being at a shir, and the kind of idea of time and space and a continuum between the physical and the metaphysical was being discussed, and I forget which sefer it was, and it was like, yeah, I get that. I've been there. I've been there, and the other people in the shir did not get it. And then I was thinking, boy, did I cheat? Because here I really forget who the Baal Sefer was, the Mechaber was, but here he's talking about these things which I achieved through acid. He's talking about these things, and he did not take acid. And I'm thinking, wow, how high was he? There was how totally connected was he that he came to these realizations. And did I cheat? And then I realized, you know what? Tools are vessels. Vessels are tools. And if I had the vessel or the keli, that little, whatever it was, the liquid stuff that they just put in your finger and you lick it and you're gone, right? Okay, so if that was there and gave me certain insights that have formed my life in terms of certain understandings, then gewalt. Why not use it for the right, for good, for exactly what Jerry was talking about. So it's nice to hear him, put some of that in words, and to realize that, we've been on the same page for years. Thank goodness.
Is the Talmud itself, excuse me, can't I just say, is it the Talmud itself defy the time-space continuum? Because you have rabbis who live centuries apart arguing with each other on the same page. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
People who learn Talmud, even the most literal learners, understand that the rabbis come from different eras, right? Some of them are conversing. That's a time-space continuum bust.
And we're still debating with them.
Right. But listen, but you know what? But I just learned this thing by Rav Kook about the Akedah. I know this is off the topic, but I mean, it is on the topick.
Nothing's ever off the topic, Steve.
But he when you talk about transcending time and space, he's talking about how Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Abraham to go for the Akedah Yitzchak, for the binding of Yitzchak, to go to the place that I will tell you. And he never really tells him, because the next time you have that is that Abraham sees Hamakom Merachok. He sees it from a distance. But Rav Kook says that the place spoke. Now we use that term, it speaks to me. We use that in our vocabulary a lot. Something, I see something and I relate to it. And what do I say? I say it speaks to me. But here's the concept is that a place, what's a place? A place doesn't speak. On a different plane and a different way of looking at it, the place spoke to Avram. Okay, this place was just a shliach v'kadosh baruch hu. So it was really Hashem, and that's the word that Hashem did not break his promise. Rav Kook is saying, yeah, Hashem did tell Avraham. It's just they told him through the place. So here we have people, we have God, and we have a place, all in a conversation. And to me, that is something that's very transcendent. And a lot of people will get stuck. Wait a minute, how can a place speak? And is it really speech? And no, you got to see the holistic beauty of it, and you realize that there are different dimensions. And
absolutely, and even within our own Masorah and our own text, we have the interpretation. And Tehillim, it says, you know, their speech goes out. They're talking about the Kochavim, the plant, the sun, and the moon. Their speech goes out throughout the whole world. Their voice can be heard. And like they, you know, we know that the celestial creation, all creation has its own voice. I mean, and what that say, there's a Sefer Devorah, what is it?
Tomer Devorah?
Yeah, thank you. That describes all of the different voices and sound, you know, the languages of the different animals and stuff. So
well, they're Parakashira.
oh, that's what it is.
That's what it is. Parakashira.
But you're speaking of Torah that relate. When you were talking just now, Steve, about how, you know, wondering if, you're talking about how you were reaching the same place that you were hearing the Rebbe talk about achieving, but you were using, you know, LSD and he wasn't, and wondering if that's cheating. That reminds me very much of the Torah, which I believe Shlomo would give over as well. But it's a big Sfati Torah that, you know, for every door there is a gate, for every gate there is a lock, for every lock there is a key, and you know, Hashem loves, you know, the person who has the key, but, you know, the thief can break every lock and go through every gate and go through every door, and Hashem loves the thief best.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Cheating or not, you know, you're getting to the place, I guess you could say that. But that reminds me. And in the little part that I had you, when I had you stop on the first from that interview, right after that, where they talk about the acid test and what's going on, Jerry actually again says kind of very similar to what you were just saying, was talking about how, as he says before, you know, it's hard to talk about, you can't, you know, you can't get there, but like if you know what I'm talking about, then I assume you've gotten high, and if you haven't gotten high, then I assume, you know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I assume you haven't gotten high. But you again pointed out that missing piece, which I love. It says, like with Torah, like you can get to that place, and you know what I'm talking about, even if you got
right
there.
Right. As they say, Hamevin Yavin. You know, the Mavin Yavin. You know, the one who understands. Okay, so
exactly.
Keep rolling.
Are we going to see a little bit of more of one interview that is on?
Yeah. So I have a little bit. You know, we talked a lot about different stuff. Now Jerry talks a little bit more about his music process. You know, we talked about how he grew and developed and didn't get stuck in the cul-de-sac, and now he talks a little bit about how he and how the Dead as a creative unit did that. So play this, and you can play that to the end, and you guys will have heard most of the interview. If you want to hear a little more of him talking about the acid test, go back and listen to the whole thing when you can. Everyone out there in Radio Free Nachlaot land.
Okay, great. Here we go.
What it's
That's
like
a
and so
big
forth.
part of you, that collaborative effort, because I know in the beginning your music was eclectic. You started with the jug band kind of bluegrass sound, even
Right.
banjo, guitar, and then got into the whole thing, blues and jazz, and which is a great thing. And you kind of explored all those ramifications, and now you're into a whole new form for creating,
Right.
where you do listen to at all different levels.
Right. Well, it's because it's more interesting from the standpoint of a person who's involved in lots of different kinds of energy. That is what's interesting to me, and on a certain level, that is what I do. Also, I deal with lots of different kinds of energy, and I feel that I'm essentially someone who works into things. Rather than I'm not an artist in the solo or in the independent artist in the Garrett mold. I'm not that sort of person.
Follow me, gang.
Right. I'm part of dynamic situations, and that's where I like it, and that's where I feel I function best. And the Grateful Dead is a collection of people, or all people who've come to that idea, all through various different ways, and it works. That's really all we have to say about what we do. If you want to see it work, if you want to see a situation work that doesn't have any leader, that doesn't have any plan, or doesn't and is utterly formless, really, from moment to moment, then you don't have to guess about whether something like that will work.
Yeah.
We have it, and it's working.
Yeah.
And
How can you do that without bumping egos?
Well, we bump egos. But but everybody has learned that the best things happen when everybody agrees and feels that that's the right thing to do, rather than one person has an idea and everybody else feels a little funny about it. So we go on that level of, if somebody doesn't like it, we don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've learned to trust each other after a long enough time of fiddling around with this idea. We've learned to trust each other to the point of saying, well, if Kreutzmann doesn't like it, it's no good.
Yeah.
And that idea comes from the idea of basically that no idea really makes it if you can't include everybody in it. If you can't bring everybody.
You know what this is sounding like? Marriage, or a good marriage, or a good family.
Well, I think it's just a good way for people to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And of course, it depends on what they're doing. I think you'd probably run into trouble if you were trying to build a bridge. You can't improvise on that level too well. But I believe that if you had people that were all really skilled at that particular world, that they could do it. Because on another level, on the mathematics level, architecturally, musically, that's what the Grateful Dead does. Is we're creating architectures.
Mm-hmm.
Architectural models, if you will, of kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
And they work, and each person adds their own personality to the whole thing, and it works. Somehow. And I think that everything could be that way, really.
Jerry, when you talk about energy, what's the source of your own? I think energy, we had the old-fashioned word we used to use a lot was faith, or the spirit, grace, life, enthusiasm, whatever. But what is the source? Where do you go to prime the pump?
Well,
when you're out?
enthusiasm that you almost said, but then enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I think, the thing of feeling good about it is like really, as far as I'm concerned, that's the gold in the situation. That's the payoff, if there is one, on the level of why am I involved? I'm involved because I like it and because it feels good. And the enthusiasm of feeling good about something, I think that's the most important thing about it is, on a personal level, like what do I get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I get out of it. And I don't think that I could do anything for any other reason. I couldn't, nothing else would be that, nothing else would be that kind of a payoff. I don't
Riches, fame, power, it shows. It shows in you. You've also described music as your yoga, as your meditation.
Right, and by that I just mean that I think that it's a good thing to have one thing that you can work on a more or less a daily basis and be able to see improvement in your own terms that is a result only of your own energy being put into the thing, you know what I mean? It's the kind of thing, anything that you decided to do, if you did it every day and it was something that you could notice yourself improving, even if it was whatever it was, cats, cradles, crossword puzzles,
prayer,
right,
the rosary, these
whatever.
are all forms.
Sure, they're all forms, and I think that the things that keep opening in front of you, the more you do them, the better you get at them. That idea, I think, is really a nice idea to have in your life. It keeps you centered to something,
Yeah.
You don't have to be worried about how you're being judged in some absolute sense, but you can judge your own progress on a day-to-day basis. And when you're doing something like that, you know when you're off, and you know when you're on.
You're on. We're off. Thank you, Jerry Garcia, for the discipline and the sharing and the growing. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. Believe. God bless us all. Please.
Baruch
That was very-
Hashem. God bless
that
us
was,
all.
that was
Man,
right.
I
That
love
was
that
very
guy.
that was very enjoyable. He's a funny
Yeah,
guy.
he's
That was very-
he's great. I want to see his other episodes now.
Right?
I
Okay.
love it. I want him to be my rabbi. I don't know.
yeah, right. There you go.
Gay
Okay.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So Noah, what's next? I'm
next?
anxious for some more music. We want.
I was
music.
gonna say, let me get back to the music. And speaking of music, let me just say one thing I really love there is, you know, I'm a musician, and that's I think part how we met and how you got me on here. But one thing I love is I always approach music kind of very in the practice of doing music the same way Jerry did. What's great about it is you practice and you put in the time and the effort and you see the results. And that's something that's, I think, such an important thing to be able to see in this world, you know, to see that kind of concrete thing. And it's such an important lesson for kids to have, which is why I think it's so valuable and so important that we keep music in schools. So let me just put that out there. But so that's hopefully we got a great insight into the person. And of course, now we'll get back to some tunes. I guess I'm going to switch a little order and then we go back because I have one other non-music thing from Jerry, but let's get some tunes in here first. You know, in the past, I've told you about my own personal journey, and I told you that one of my favorite experiences of Jerry I had was my freshman year of college in '93 when I went to the Providence Civic Center and saw Jerry Band play, and it was just unbelievable. It was the old days where the whole floor was open. It was an all GA show, and you know, was there alone but bumped into every friend in the world. We just managed to like reconnect right on the floor, and that was really magic. And he was great. That was a great tour in '93. They did a live album from there, and the highlight of that night for me was the Dear Prudence, which he played, which I played for you guys last year. But the other great tune cover that I love that he used to play in those days, which was also on that live album, which was one of my staples, you know, in the pre-internet days, was the way he played Tangled Up in Blue. And so I got a version of Jerry playing Tangled Up in Blue there, but instead of the one from that year in '93, I'm going back a little earlier to a '76 version, which is right about the time from that interview we just saw. So we can see what he was doing with some of those side projects, which he was doing to keep that kind of experience, that raw experience for the audience there. And this particular, again, this video has some great visuals, so footage of there. So here's Jerry playing the Masters still, even much later in his career than we heard in '62 and '76, playing Tangled Up in Blue by his contemporary, who was our master, of course, the one and only Bobby Zimmerman.
Homemade dress, Papa's big book wasn't big enough. I'm sitting on the side of the road, rain pouring on my shoes, heading up to the East Coast. God knows I'm paying some blues, getting through. Tangled up and blue. Jam, I guess, but I lose a little too much force. Drove the car as far as we could, paying the need out west. Separated on the docks that night, both agreed it was best. She turned to talk to me as I was rolling away. Heard her say over my shoulder, we'll meet again someday on the news. I've been blue. Had a job in the green old woods, working as a cook for a spell. Never did like it all that much, and on anything else to smell. All me, so I was lucky to be employed. Working for a while on a fishing boat right outside of Crow. All the while I was alone, the place was close behind. I know a lot of women, she'd never escape my mind. Just tangled up in blue. She was working in a topless place, and I stopped in for a bit. Kept looking at the set of her face and the spotlight so clear. Her own when the crowd thinned out, and I was just about to do the same. Standing there back in my chair, sitting timid on the landing. Muttered something underneath my breath. She studied the lines of my face. Must admit I felt a little uneasy when she bent down to count the laces of my shoes. And I've been blue. Stove, offered me a pipe. Thought you'd never see a low, she said you look like the sanitary. She opened up a book of poems, handed it to me. Written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. Every one of them words straight true, they go like burning coal. Wrote it off of every page like it was written in my soul. Me to you. Tangled up in blue. a basement down the stairs. There's music in the cafes at night and revolution in the air. He started into dealing with slaves and something inside of him died. She had to sell everything she owned and rose up inside. Later on when the bar fell out and I became gone, only thing I know how to do is to keep on keeping on like a bird that flew. All the people that we used to know an illusion to me now. Some of them have the magicians, some are carpenters' wives. I don't got started, I don't know what to do with their lives. Me, I'm still on the road, headed for another joint. It always didn't feel the same, I just saw it from a different point. Tangled up and blue.
I love that.
Very animated John Kahn over there. Very
I was
animated.
love getting his John Kahn there, man. He's a looker, man. He's a handsome guy.
But you know,
That was
it really-
fantastic.
yeah, that was good. That was good.
Just so nice. So
Okay,
sweet.
what's next?
Well, that was great. You know, I you know, when I was a kid, you know, like first you got into the Grateful Dead, and then you know the more you heard, then you got into Jerry Band, like we just did, and the more you heard, then you got into Legion of Mary, with Merle Saunders, and whether it was the Keystone tapes before they took the Legion of Mary, the Keystone sessions, which were on CD, or then lucky enough to get a bunch of Legion of Mary tapes whenever I could. Again, another one of those side projects that we just heard Jerry talk about in the 70s were so important to keep the creative energy going and to keep having a more intimate experience with the audience as well. So this is Every Word You Say going on there. I don't know if I don't think I got to place the Legion of Mary last year, so I have to do it now. So there we'll go, and then after that I have some more interesting stuff to bookend, and then some other treats for you.
Okay.
I'm no good company, I know that's true. I like my silence like I love you. But if you feel like talking, talk away. I'm gonna hang on to every word you say. I'll stroke your shoulder without a word. Rush of blood, love, was all I heard. But if you feel like whispering, whisper away. I'm gonna hang on to every word you say. my tolling bell. But if you feel like singing, sing away. I'm gonna harmonize every word you say. I'm gonna harmonize every word you say. I'm gonna harmonize every word you say.
Woo!
Do you happen to know who wrote that song?
I don't know. For a second, I was gonna say Otis Redding, but that's the song I'm gonna play next. So that is not. So
That one was called Every Word
yes,
You
that's
Say.
Every Word You Say. Yeah, that's a great tune, and I love the way they do it. And I'll tell you in a second. Oh, there it was. Every word.
It was very Jesse Winchester. Very
Oh, there you
nice.
go. Beautiful. You beat me to the punch. That's
Very nice. Very nice.
and with Merle and with the horn is amazing. I was gonna say between that and the Tangled Up in Blue, you can see why I loved Jerry picking on the banjo, but I'm so glad that he picked up the guitar.
Sure, 100%. It's very
Let's
sweet.
play that.
See them
Okay.
live.
So what Otis Redding song do you have?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what Otis Redding song I have here too. You know, I have two more songs. I have three more songs to play. Two more will conclude the Jerry portion. And I started off with the first two studio recordings Jerry made, and I'm going to end with the last two studio recordings Jerry ever made in 1995 with the Jerry Garcia Band. We just heard doing Tangled Up in Blue. Many years later, 20 years later almost, they did a single for the movie Smoke with Harvey Keitel and John Hurt, which is a great independent film where it was about a tobacco shop. So they covered Otis Redding's Cigarettes and Coffee. So kids, don't smoke out there. But,
And if you do, don't smoke tobacco.
if you do, don't smoke tobacco. Well, you can, and if that's what you're doing, give me a call. But anyway, so it's great. And I remember going out and seeing this film after Jerry died, and as well as the next thing that I'll play for you, and that provided some comfort. But again, Otis, how can you go wrong with Otis Redding? And just
Cigarette, coffee.
Yeah, Cigarettes and Coffee there. And this is Jerry's second to last release, and the last release from the Jerry Garcia Band, and the last release from any of his traditional arrangements, as you'll see.
It's early in the morning, about 2:45. And I'm sitting here talking with my baby over cigarettes, coffee. To tell you I don't feel so satisfied, honey, since I met you, baby, since I met you, all the ladies that I've been around, and all the good-looking girls that I met, they just don't seem to fit in, not in this particular time. But it seems so natural, darling, that you and I are here just talking over cigarettes and drinking coffee. Oh, my heart cries out, at last I found you. Honey, won't you let me build my whole life around you? Oh, and how complete my whole life would be. You would take me under consideration, walk down this aisle with me. Oh, I would love it, I would just love it, darling. I say it's so early in the morning. It's 2:45, we just sit here. Talking over cigarettes and drinking coffee. Oh, drinking coffee. I'd like to show you. Well, I know nothing good old George. Since I met you, darling, honey, since I met you, baby, I'd love to have another drink of coffee, have another drink of coffee, have another drink of coffee. Please, darling, help me smoke. Please help me smoke. Please help me smoke. Help me smoke. Just one more cigarette. Oh, I wanna smoke one more cigarette that you made. Drinking coffee, baby, coffee, baby. It's so early in the morning, baby. It's so early in the morning, baby.
I tell you, I could use a cup of coffee,
I
but I'm on
I
a co-
could use
I'm on
a
a-
cigarette.
love another song more than that. I'm gonna play that for myself every morning now.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's great. That's great. Okay.
No, that's great.
Wonderful.
I love it. There's so much feeling and everything he played. There was always so much feeling, and I definitely feel it. Always, especially in Jerry Band, when it does that. And there, to think that was really his last traditional recording. And we could see kind of, I guess, a little bit of the journey he made in the visuals too for that versus that artwork from the opening Heart Valley Drifters.
Right.
To going from the young kid to the old Papa Jerry.
Right.
At
So that
only
was-
53, you guys, like, can I just say Jerry would have been 80 this year? Like how we look at him and his old Papa Jerry, you might as well have been 80.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
true.
53 is way too close to home at this point, man.
Oh, it's way behind me. It's like a
Right.
decade behind me. You know?
But let's be honest. Like Jerry looked like 5 decades older than you guys when he was like a third of your age. It's crazy.
Like, how old was Jerry in 76, 77?
What's
Dude,
95?
It was like 30, 31, 2 or something.
he was in his early 30s and he seemed older. And I was in
That's-
college and he seemed, I don't know, like he has a little bit of touch of eternity about him. So he seemed older when he was younger, etc. I don't know.
He was an old soul, an old Gilgal.
old soul in a body that needed a lot of supplemental help to keep that light going.
Well,
Like,
you're speaking
really
of cigarettes and
Why?
coffee.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's the whole thing of like how he lived, how much he, even when the Grateful Dead tried to take breaks, he kept on touring. And there's just such like this idea that he had a hard time seeing how that was affecting his body till it was kind of just about trying to manage the damage, which makes me want to do a commercial for Hawaii and and scuba diving and looking and like if that's a metaphor, but for me it's literal. I'd love to go back. Like we should all have that Hawaii, and Jerry should have had more of it just from the beginning. He should have known to take a Shabbos in his 7 days, you know.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I offer Baruch Hashem for Shabbos because thank God I'm still working, and I'm working for our Beit Knesset. Shuls are open 24/7. They got us beat. We're only open 24/6, and and I can take a day here and there, because I can manage my work. But there's a sense of constancy. I'm not taking off for a 2-week vacation, but I take off every Shabbos, and that's like mamish, And I take off every time I put Jerry on the radio. So, what's next? This is the last piece. You have the last recorded.
Well, yeah, I have some more music after this, but what's coming up next? I told you Cigarettes and Coffee. That was the last Jerry Band recording that came out in '95. At about the same time, there was a South Asian experimental avant-garde guitarist named Sanjay Mishra, who had an album scheduled to come out in the second half of '95, on which he got for one track to sit in one of the best experimental avant-garde guitarists out there to join him, none other than Jerry Garcia. A project
only one track. Wait a minute, Jerry was on. No, Jerry was on.
Album.
I'm sorry. He got to sit in the album. So, something which very probably would have gone relatively unnoticed had it not been for the fact that Jerry passed away right shortly before the release. And then when it came out, I remember running to the record store to go and grab this. So here from Blue Incantation is Jerry Garcia and Sanjay Mishra on Clouds. And we know he's up there floating on one with his guitar. So I hope he's looking down for us as he does this. All right. Well,
I love that. Very relaxing. I play that that album on the radio a lot, actually. I really like it.
nice.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. That's really underplayed. It's great, and I think it really shows that literally right up until the end, until his final recordings, he never got stuck in that cul-de-sac of creativity, but for sure.
No, when did you make that recording? That last one? What month was it? July or June?
It was
Yeah,
released that fall, and he recorded it earlier that year. The exact exact date I could tell you.
Studio. It was like his last studio recording.
But yeah, that was his last time in the studio. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, and I guess just shows what an incredible journey, which of course was way too short. What a long time to be gone and a short time to be there. But there's still so much, and I hope that some of the things that we played today, both music and the interviews, we new to your audience. But there certainly is so much out there that we could spend a lifetime exploring as Jerry's catalog and all the variations there. And lifetime is just what we have. So
It's true. It's true. It's
Noah,
true.
my plan is to upload this video to YouTube and to add all the links into the comments too, so people can watch like the extended versions of them. And stuff.
That's awesome.
We have about, it's past midnight in Jerusalem. And Steve's bedroom is also the bedroom of Mrs. Steve Levine, and I bet you would like to get to bed soon. So what can we do?
I have one more track which I'll play for you. And
one more. That's good.
Once you press play, you can put it on mute, Steve. So
listen,
we don't want to disturb the Reverend. But
I just want to thank you once again for being on the air with us.
Oh,
it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. You should make strong music. You should come to the Holy Land, and I'll hang out with you in person.
Sounds like a beautiful idea. Come to the Holy Land, and come to the other promised land, which the Dead sang about, California, and I'll go see Lorelai out there too.
Okay,
We should all be together.
I was gonna say, I think Lorelai, you should probably come to the base on Mikdash, and we'll do it there next year.
Okay.
Lorelai, I'll be in touch with Lorelai. And I'll be on the radio. Remember, 9 Days of Jerry continues through Istru Jerry, which is, I think, Wednesday. I've lost track already. Anyway, so stay tuned for a lot of great music. And okay, what's this last track, Noah?
I have one more track. Let me just say, I'll say this. I mentioned before, I told you the story about how my freshman year of college in Providence, I went and I saw Jerry Band and that show. And the last time I told that show was on Sirius XM's Tales from the Golden Road, which is a radio show hosted by David Gans, who we all know from the Grateful Dead that hour. He was an amazing musician and an amazing journalist. By the way, David Gans was also the name of the Tzemach Tzedek. I don't know how many people are aware of that.
That's wild. Yeah.
He comes from a very hush of a rabbinic family, I believe.
Right.
So I actually was lucky enough to open for him at a benefit recently, and I actually am doing that again at a virtual benefit on August 27th for Bay Area Cancer Connections.
Oh, cool.
Which is part of my tour. I'll be playing immediately before him, and hopefully in November he'll be coming northeast for some live shows, and hopefully there'll be some very handsome support act on those.
Very nice, very good.
When that comes, and actually when I told him the story about that show on Tales from the Golden Road, it's because I was promoting a show I did with my project called Terrapin Chamber Ensemble, which I know I've talked to you guys about before, which is a project where we do acoustic and orchestral arrangements of the Grateful Dead music at different sacred spaces. In November 2019, we did one in the National Historic Landmark Sanctuary of the synagogue at Eldridge Street, which is now an amazing museum and cultural space, as well as a synagogue in New York City. And just as Jerry was playing the tunes of his Rebbe's that we heard a lot of, we continued his Talmidim, we continue to play them for all you guys now. So this was an amazing project, an amazing show I did, which featured Scott Guberman from Phil Lesh and Friends, Kenny Brooks from Rat Dog, Zach Nugent from JGB, the successor Skip Vangelis from Dark Shore Orchestra, and a whole bunch of other people, and yours truly on drums and doing some vocals here. So I'll let that play you out, and hopefully, you know, this generation and all the generations to come will keep that Masora going and keep those tunes playing. And, you know, they say that when you give over a Torah in the name of your Rebbe, his lips move or her lips move in the grave. So hopefully Jerry's fingers, at least 9.5 of them will be moving in the grave there when you listen to this there. So thank you guys so much. Once again, I'm about to go out on tour. In addition to those shows, I'll be playing at festivals from West Virginia to New York to Pennsylvania to Connecticut. And you can find out all that information at noahlehrman.com/tour. And I'll try to throw up some links to that. Relics is very kind enough to do a feature on my tour that came out on Friday on my shows, including mentioning this one. And I just want to give a shout out at this Eldridge Street show that you're about to hear. Before the show, I actually did a little interview presentation, gave over some Grateful Torah of mine with the editor-in-chief of Relics, Mike Greenhouse, which we've also done a Grateful Purim before. So we always love to see everyone out there who's seeing this wonderful connection between Torah and the Grateful Dead and spreading it. And of course, we all know the first flowering of that, both in the Holy Land and in the world, was Radio Free Nachlaot, which is still going strong. So make sure it keeps going strong. So please, this is a fundraiser as well. This is a benefit here too. So please, this is a holy tzedakah. It's not just music, it's Torah. And we should all, you know, my Rebbe in Sfat used to say that the music of the Gemara comes out at night. And I like to say that the Gemara of music comes out tonight. So hopefully we've done a bit of both there. And we'll leave you with our version of a couple of great tunes, a sequence which starts out, of course, with The Eyes of the World, which has some beautiful imagery, beautiful, almost biblical imagery there by that amazing bluegrass bass player we also heard at the beginning of the hour, Robert Hunter. So thank you guys so much for having me. Once again, it's always a pleasure and a highlight, and I'll try to give you some more music to play on the radio, and I'll see you guys on the radio.
There you go. Thank you much, Noah. Okay.
Yeah, all on the radio.
All right. So this is Terrapin Chamber Ensemble, Eyes of the World, into Sugar Ray.
its homeland and thoughts of its own. We now discover that you are the song that the morning brings. Heartlands and seasons and sealands and songs of its own.
Hey, friends, we have reached the end of our recording time here with our recording. We are going to post the clip, the links to all of the clips that we've seen on our YouTube page, and we'll do it on Radio Free Nachlaot as well, on the Facebook page, etc. Noah, I gotta say thank you so much. What an awesome, wonderful show you made for us.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to do it.
Wonderful. I love that. That was great.
Beautiful. I hope I weaved a little narrative about Jerry's experience there, a little different from what we normally get.
Well, we definitely want to hear more of that, but we have to go because this is 2 hours now. So, unfortunately, we have to
L'shana haba'ah, b'Yerushalayim,
okay.
b'Nachlaot. We'll
Love
do
you
it.
guys. See you later. Lehitraot.
Schlaf get, Steve. Bye. Thank you.